Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, HR in Action, Building Diverse and Inclusive Hiring Practices. We're so glad that you can join us. This is a recording of yesterday's webinar that we've created to be able to put on YouTube so you can watch us catch up. At the heart of our session today is a simple belief: the strongest teams are built on a foundation of diversity, inclusion, and fairness. Let's meet the team who are presenting today. My name's Amy, and to make it really simple, my colleague is also called Amy. I'm Amy Foster. I'm a HR professional, and I'm a little bit unique as I have a passion for recruitment. I think it's far nicer to offer someone a job than to take it from them. Up until last year, I ran my own recruitment company. I'm now a business development manager for Citizens Advice Leicestershire. Over to the other Amy.
And I'm the other Amy, and I'm the Wellbeing Inclusion Practitioner here at Citizens Advice Leicestershire. So I deal with everything from mental health, physical health, disability advocacy, etc.
We've got four main goals for you this morning. We're looking at the design of recruitment practices that actually reduce bias and widen access to talent, how to build inclusive processes that actually strengthen your team's performance, how to position your organisation as a genuine employer of choice, and we'll show you how to access support from Citizens Advice Leicestershire. To begin with, though, we're going to have a bit of fun, hopefully. Maybe not this much fun that the GIF is showing, but we have an inclusive HR pub quiz for you. So we're going to take time to find 5 quick questions for you to see how the landscape of UK recruitment is shifting. Let's go to question 1. Question 1. What percentage of the UK workforce is neurodivergent? Which one do you think it is? Give you a quick moment and I'll reveal the answer, which is C, 15 to 20%. So this is up to 1 in 5 people. This highlights why diverse thinking isn't a niche topic, it's already present in your application pools and in your teams. Question 2. We're looking for a true or false here. An employer can legally refuse to hire someone simply because they have a spent conviction. What do you think then? True or false? The answer is false. Under the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act, once a conviction is spent, it generally cannot be used to deny employment. Research actually shows these employees often have higher levels of loyalty and retention. Question 3. How many seconds does a candidate spend on average reading a job description before deciding whether or not to apply? Is it A, B, or C? Okay, I've probably given you about the same amount of time as the answer. The answer is 14 seconds, which is B. You have a tiny window then to grab someone's attention. So if your advert is a wall of text or feels exclusive, you've lost talent before they even hit apply. As most job hunting is done on a phone, you have the length of the screen to be able to capture somebody's attention for that advert before they scroll on and have already made a decision. It's all about scrolling, so you've got that much time to be able to capture their interest. Question 4. According to the Social Mobility Commission, what percentage of elite, so we're looking at top jobs like law and finance, top billers, what percentage of elite UK jobs are held by people from working class backgrounds? So we're looking for A, B, or C here. 6%, 15%, or 22%. The answer is A, it's 6%. This is the class ceiling. It shows that even with good intentions, systems can often unintentionally filter people out based on background rather than potential. One way to get around this then is to take out the education names on CVs. You can remove the name of a candidate, you can remove the postcode, and you can remove the dates that somebody went to school and through university, college, anything like that. That will take out the bias in that way. Question 5. While men often apply for jobs when they meet 60% of the criteria, women typically only apply when they meet what percentage? So is that 80, 90, or 100%? This is our last question. A, B, or C? The answer is 100%. So this is why we advocate for the 70% rule, which we'll get onto. And this focuses on essentials to encourage a broader range of top talent to step forward. So we don't need to list everything, just what we actually want from the candidate. So let's get to the crux of it. What is inclusive hiring? It's a deliberate effort to minimise bias and create a fair process from start to finish. When we talk about bias, we mean the mental shortcuts our brains take without us realizing. They're the quick decisions we've already got, what we're wired to do, very, very quick without us knowing. These shortcuts lead us to favour people with similar backgrounds or communication styles to our own. So if you look around the workplace, you'll quite often find that you've hired mini-me's, people that look like you, sound like you, think like you. This can mean we accidentally overlook great talent because they don't fit a familiar mould. Inclusive hiring is about actively removing these invisible barriers. What is diversity? Let's take a closer look. At its simplest, this is the idea that differences in how people's brains work are a natural part of being human. As we saw in the quiz, up to 20% of the workforce is neurodivergent. This includes ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and a host of other conditions. Thank you, I needed that word. These individuals bring unique strengths like innovation and deep focus. In fact, companies embracing diverse thinking styles see a 1.4 higher revenue. So how do we design the invitation? Inclusive recruitment starts with the design, and by that we mean the job advert. A critical step here is the language audit. We need to ensure we aren't being ageist or macho in our phrasing, so avoid terms like energetic graduate, digital native, recent grad, which can alienate older talent. Similarly, avoid macho or aggressive language like aggressive go-getter, ninja, or coding warrior, which research shows can discourage women from applying. We recommend having a reality or, challenges of the role section. Instead of everything looking rosy, be really realistic. So instead of listing the amazing perks, be honest. For example, if the role involves high levels of data entry or frequent travel, state these clearly. This helps candidates self-select and prevent someone from applying who might find those specific tasks a barrier to their well-being or neurodivergence. Let's look at radical transparency. So this involves moving away from vague corporate speak. So with a salary, list a clear salary range instead of it just saying competitive. Job titles now can be really quite quirky for something, a personal shopper instead of picking and packing. A manager in one company can mean something very different to a manager in another. A manager might be a 30k role in one company, it might be 60k in another. So by advertising what the salary is, you really are getting the right experience level and helping the right people find that advert. With flexibility, be specific about what flexible really means. So are the core hours between 10 and 3, that's when you want somebody to work. If you can work 4 days out of 5, can you choose which is the day that you have off? Can that be moved? Speak to all sectors to be able to make sure that the flexibility really does mean flexibility. And the accessibility, state clearly how accessible the physical office is. Maybe there's some photos on your website. Is it an open plan office? Where would somebody be sitting? What does it look like? And the digital tools that you use, is it very much online or do you have a different process for that? Let's look at the 70% rule. This is what we spoke about in the quiz. Inclusive adverts shift the focus from a wish list to essentials. So as we saw in the quiz, women and certain neurodivergent groups are less likely to apply if they don't meet 100% of the criteria. So a great way to apply this is to ask, do we really need this from them on day one? Often we list technical systems that a new hire will actually learn during their first month anyway. By removing those trainable skills from the essentials and focusing on core talents, you make the invitation feel far more achievable to a wider range of high potential talents. And by removing these desirables, and you can see an advert that has got loads and loads and loads and loads of things that they want from somebody, you're either not going to find Superman or Superwoman, or if you do, you're not paying the right level to have somebody that has everything that you're looking for. So by removing those desirable traits and focusing only on what's actually needed to do the job, you make the invitation far more achievable. Open it up. So the last part on this slide is the video ads. I love this. Using a 60-second video of the actual hiring manager talking about the role, bring it to life. Not only will you see who you work for, but the background will be the office or wherever it is that you work. I used to do these. I think it far brings an advert to life. I also used to invite candidates if they wanted to do a video in reply, so they don't have to rely on the written word. It's far easier to see somebody human to human. You don't even have to write your own CV now, do you? So the words may not actually be your own, but in a video, it really is authentic. It's the real you. And this bridges the literacy gap for some and provides a day in the life preview that reduces anxiety. It makes the invitation feel human rather than just a cold digital document. And you're moving the job advert away from a test that somebody's to pass and move towards an honest conversation about whether the candidate and the role are a good match for each other. So when we do move to the interview, it's vital that it's structured. Why is this? Because unstructured interviews where we just have a chat are one of the biggest playgrounds for bias. When we don't have a plan, our mental shortcuts take over and we look for a culture fit, which often means like people we like. A structured interview means every candidate is asked the same questions in the same order and scored against the same clear criteria. It creates a level playing field where talents can be compared fairly based on evidence, not on how much the interviewer liked them. One of the most impactful things we do is give questions in advance. This reduces performance anxiety and nerves, allowing candidates to focus on providing the actual evidence and answers you need for a fair decision. We found that giving these structured answers a few days in advance is a game changer. It gives candidates a chance to bring their best answers and to show what they've done. By giving them the opportunity to research it and to pull all that information together, you get better data. It may be that somebody's pulling a portfolio together to show you. It really is more about what they've done than what they can think of on the spot. But for high pressure roles, you might want to keep a few off the cuff questions, but the rest should be shared. This allows people to prepare their best evidence, and remember, reasonable adjustments should be offered from day one. Another part I really like is about shadowing and trials. So this is about moving from telling about the role to showing them. By outlining in the advert that the process could involve a trial or shadowing opportunity, you signal that you value the actual skill over talking a good game. It ensures you're measuring what actually matters and allows candidates to feel whether the role and the company are a fit for them. I did this with several clients. I also saw that there was a reduction in the number of candidates pulling out of the recruitment process as they know exactly what to expect, the anxiety level and have I made the right choice, or that period between when you've had your interview and when you're actually supposed to start, where higher retention rates, much higher retention rates. We often talk about inclusion in terms of neurodiversity or gender, but a truly inclusive talent strategy must also address those who are often the most excluded, individuals with criminal records. Currently, there are over 12 million in the UK with a criminal record. If our recruitment processes automatically filter them out, we aren't just being exclusive, we are actively ignoring a massive, highly motivated talent pool that is statistically proven to strengthen business performance. There is a common perception that there is a high-risk move, but the evidence shows the opposite. Employees with a criminal record are statistically less likely to job hop. They value the opportunity and remain incredibly loyal to the employer who gave them the chance. There is also a fear regarding workplace theft is the highest one, but the reality is that an ex-offender is actually less likely to steal your purse than a typical employee might. And why is this? Because the stakes are indefinitely higher for them. If they're caught, it doesn't just mean losing their job, it means being recalled to prison, or it can mean being recalled to prison. This creates a powerful incentive for honesty and high performance. Employment is the single most effective way to reduce reoffending. Last slide for me then. Being an inclusive employer isn't about doing everything perfectly overnight. It's about small changes that build psychological safety. Google actually spent 2 years studying their team and found that psychological safety was the #1 factor for success. So what does this actually mean? At its simplest, it is a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. Excuse me. It's a culture where people feel safe to ask silly questions, admit a mistake, or challenge an idea without fear of being judged, embarrassed, or marginalised. In an inclusive workplace, this is vital. It means a neurodivergent employee or someone from a marginalised background feels safe to bring their unique perspective to the table without having to mask who they are. Inclusion isn't just a nice to have, it's a performance strategy. By moving from policy to practice and building that safety, you create a workplace where people don't just join, they stay and they thrive. On the screen, there are some quick examples that you might like to consider.
Thank you, Amy. So, as I said earlier, I'm the other Amy and I work as the Wellbeing Inclusion Practitioner. So, my role sits at the heart about how we think about recruitment, not just as processes and policies, but actually as an experience. And I think those lines on the screen just sum it up really well. So, it's not just about adjustments, it's understanding the barriers. So, yes, we can make reasonable adjustments, especially if there's barrier to someone's work. But my job often goes deeper than that, and it's about asking what actually is getting in someone's way and how do we remove those barriers. And that can be the systems itself that are actually causing those barriers. And it's not just compliance, it's about building culture. So equality law sort of sets the floor, but not the ceiling. So it's sort of the bare minimum. Anyone can, tick boxes. So what we're trying to do at Citizens Advice is to create an environment where people genuinely feel like they belong and come to work as their true self, just from the very first interaction someone has with us. And it's not just starting right, it's also sustaining it. So inclusive recruitment doesn't just end when someone accepts an offer. My role is about making sure the welcome, the onboarding, and the employee journey all reflect the same values that we demonstrate in how we hire. So, since my role, you can see the impact that we've had on the culture through the data. So there's been a 10% increase in retention, so 61 to 71%, a 46% reduction in sickness absence. Our QAA score's gone from 20% to 90%, which is just crazy. And we've only had 7 voluntary resignations. So in the last 4 years, the highest was 12 to 14. So that's like nearly half. So for every intervention we invested into our culture, the data shows that for every £1, we saved £5.83. So more than quadruple the amount we invested are we saving. And we've calculated the overall cost saving, which came into just under £260,000 in the last year. And these are through improvements in our culture, the reduced staff turnover, the lower sickness absence, and fewer conflict resolution cases compared to the previous year. So this demonstrates that these sort of interventions, they're not to be viewed as sort of nice to haves or we'll get round to it when we have time, because these are strategic business drivers that directly improve organizational performance, productivity, retention, and financial sustainability. So through the next few slides, I'll be sharing how these principles show up in actual practice, the real day-to-day work of making recruitment generally inclusive. So what does this look like in practice? I'm going to share with you what I've personally changed and then the road ahead to give you some ideas of where you can actually start. And there's certain things that I'll say that are also free that you can be doing like right now. So the first one in recruitment is our advanced interview questions. So receiving questions ahead of time levels the playing field enormously. So people with anxiety, autism, ADHD, or even just people who process information differently, being able to prepare reduces performance pressure and lets us see someone's actual capability of doing the role, which is obviously why we're hiring someone in the first place. So it shouldn't be about how well they cope under surprises. But if the job role specifically asks for the skill of someone to work under pressure or come up with things on the spot, then we can add like 1 to 2 spontaneous questions in at the end. And what we do is in our recruitment pack, this gets sent a week in advance of the interview. We actually do say the structure of the interview, and if that is a skill they need, we do actually put that on. So again, people can actually mentally prepare that there are going to be 2 spontaneous questions, for example. And then I've looked at our reasonable adjustment pathway because that needed a lot of work. So I designed what's called the work framework. And having some sort of reasonable adjustment framework is so important because having a clear shared framework over the organisation means inclusion isn't down to managers' own instincts. It's structured and consistent and accountable across the whole organisation. And these reasonable adjustments, they should be put in from day one. So the interview and also when they're due to start, making sure that they've got the support set up from the start. And this tells the employee that you're setting them up for success from the very start, not when you're expecting someone to prove themselves or you're waiting for someone to struggle. So in terms of our wellbeing support, we do have one-to-one appointments with protected time. That tends to be more for when people are in the organisation. But for candidates, this could mean having a one-to-one conversation about questions that they might not feel comfortable bringing up in an interview or with the hiring manager. So it could be things about adjustments, our inclusivity process, about the role, its accessibility, and also about the culture, and that allows them to decide whether they'd fit in here. So that psychological safety is everything. And then I created the Wellbeing Monthly, which is the monthly newsletter, showing that support isn't reactive, it's built in. So doses of wellbeing support that people can actively try. And I also get other employees to engage in this newsletter by writing small articles or paragraphs for the newsletter. And that sort of shared experience with other employees helps to build that internal culture. And then we have a signpost, and a lot of my job is signposting because people can't access support when they don't know it exists. So clear, proactive signposting, especially early on, removes the burden of having to search, ask, or advocate for yourself at a vulnerable time. So it's making clear where that support is, not only in the organisation, but external supports as well. And then in terms of our culture and visibility, so I've started to do more social media videos, and it's important to get these sort of interactive videos because seeing and hearing from real people at your organisation before applying helps candidates to picture themselves there. And for underrepresented groups, especially, a representation in those video signals that this might be a place for them. And then we have our welcome letter and video. So first impressions shape everything. A warm, personalised welcome reduces the anxiety of did I make the right choice and helps new starters feel seen before they've walked through the door. So we've got a video of myself and we're developing one for the CEO and HR just to introduce ourselves, our roles and where they can reach out for support. So it feels like very personalised to someone just coming in, makes them feel a bit more comfortable. And then we've got the Zenden, which is our wellbeing chat on our Google Drive. It's an informal, low barrier space for conversation. It means people don't have to be in crisis to seek support. So that early gentle touch point can make all the difference. And currently we're all doing the walk in May. So everyone's posting their sort of nature pics as they've been out in nature walking. So going on then to the road ahead, because inclusive recruitment is never finished, it's always evolving. These are areas I'm focused on developing next, and so I've grouped them into 3 areas. So starting with the candidate experience and recruitment. We're looking at developing the day in the life previews, which have been on our minds for a couple of years. So we're hopefully going to be developing that soon. One of the biggest barriers to applying is uncertainty. So not knowing what a role is actually going to feel like day to day. Realistic previews help candidates self-assess honestly, reduce drop-off after hiring, and particularly support neurodivergent candidates who thrive when they know what to expect. So going on to accessibility levels and job descriptions, not every role will require the same environment or demand. So it's really important to be transparent, which Amy talked about earlier. Transparent about the noise levels, the screen time, physical requirements, the social intensity, whether it's flexible, hybrid, home working. So being upfront means candidates can make informed decisions rather than discovering mismatches after they've already invested in the process. So it's about attracting also the right talent and people for you and also for them. And diverse panels in recruitment. So who is in the room matters. Diverse panels reduce unconscious bias in decision making as signaled to candidates from underrepresented groups that this organisation reflects them. So it's not just in its value statement, but in practice. So for example, say someone is coming into one of our roles in, say, poverty, it might be getting a volunteer from that community or someone on the panel who's been in poverty themselves to identify whether that person can connect with that community, for example. And then we've got our culture. So it's the wellbeing drop-ins and webinars. I've already started with the webinars, but I'm hoping to add in some drop-in sessions, which are accessible, regular spaces for staff to engage with wellbeing. So that can be sort of informal, quick drop-ins, or it could be a topic that they want some more information on to build a webinar. So that helps to build the kind of psychological safety that actually retains the people that we work so hard to inclusively recruit in the first place. And then our external community events. So showing up beyond our own walls. So it's about creating that community feeling, and it helps to build trust with groups who may be historically skeptical of employers. Sorry, tongue twister. It says, we're not just open to you when you apply, we're actively coming to meet you where you are. So after this walk in May, at the end of May or start of June, date to be decided still, we're hoping to do a community meet outside of work where we all go for a small accessible route walk and then have a social afterwards for those who don't actually want to do the walk. So it's accessible for everyone to come. And then finally, our systems. So I'm driving us towards level 3 disability confident. But holding the disability confident status is a starting point. It's not a destination. So the work ahead is making sure that your practices genuinely matches the commitment. So interrogating whether your processes, culture and leadership truly reflect what the badge represents. And often I work with organisations who are already level 3 disability confident, but they're not acting on what they're saying, and they're often have high conflict, high grievances, and have employment tribunals. Then we go on to our actual job design, because inclusion starts before the actual job advert. So reviewing how roles are designed, their hours, their flexibility, their essential requirements, open doors to talent that rigid job designs quietly closes. And then challenging contracts. So, for example, in our teams, we are externally funded by people that design and control how we deliver our service. And that can be quite stringent. And there's a couple of times that how they've said they want their service to be run doesn't actually protect the well-being of our employees, and we've had to sort of negotiate and challenge that contract. So if you're seeing certain roles that doesn't protect the well-being of the employee and you're working them to the bone and your values say we care, you've got to decide whether that actually matches the values and speak up about that. So a quick reminder then, I think Amy said it good earlier. You don't have to be perfect to start. So you don't have to be great to start, but you do need to start to be great. So start messy, start small, but just start. And the best way of making a start is understanding the place of your highest friction. So our friction finder session is the ideal place to get clarity. It's a 90-minute conversation using our work framework. So you heard me mention this earlier. It was originally designed as a reasonable adjustment pathway, but we saw the benefits for wider organisational use to help us identify friction between policy and practice, allowing organisations to take a more targeted approach and tackle friction at its root cause. So we've made it as accessible as we can. It's only £200. And we did this because we understand the growing pains affect SMEs the greatest, and we want to provide accessible solutions and support. So this is designed as a low risk, high value first step. And we have from friction to flow. So that is our stage one. And then we go on to stage two. So your £200 is never lost. If you want to go on to stage two, that £200 goes into the cost of the workplace friction index. And stage two is actually identifying where the friction gap sits. So stage one is a conversation where you feel the friction is and what problems you're having, which produces a comprehensive report. Stage two then is sending surveys to all your employees and managers. And then from this, it gives us a friction heat map, which actually shows where your friction is sitting against this work model. So is your friction sitting in the welcome, empower, refine, or keep? And then we design then a summary report of this and an index score. And when we know where your friction is actually sitting, we can then offer you our stage three workflow program, which is solution focused and tailored solutions. Okay, so that could be anything from like line manager training. I do things on equality, inclusivity, and reasonable adjustment support. It could be our leadership development program. But the important thing is, although we sell these separately anyway, so if you already know, then we can provide that. But most places don't actually know where the friction is sitting, and they're spending loads of costs on trainings that actually might not be the solution. So that's why this framework is so important. And if you want to know more about our framework, we are doing that through our HR Live event, which we'll go on to in a sec. So you can see then on the screen, we've tested and applied this approach ourselves and the beneficial impact this has had on our performance and culture. You can obviously see that from these statistics. So I'll pass you back to Amy, who'll talk to you a little bit about our HR Live event in Leicester.
Thank you. This is next Tuesday, the 19th of May. It's completely free. Even parking is free. We have guest speakers from Lawson West who are talking to us about the Employment Rights Act. We have speakers from Citizens Advice, and we are sponsored by HSBC. So there are coffee and pastries, and there's a networking opportunity for the last part of it. There are still a few spaces. Use the QR code if you'd like to come and join us. We'd love to meet you. This is our last but one in the series for our webinars. Next one is June the 9th at 11 o'clock, and it's about practical steps for performance, feedback and coaching. We are looking to design the next few, so if you have any ideas, please let us know. We'd love to hear your feedback on this session, and if you've got any ideas on what we're missing, where we could be, topics we could be talking about, please come back to us. In the meantime, if you'd like to join the community around citizen advice, our events, including the HR leaders one, is on Eventbrite, and we are recording our webinars and they go onto YouTube, and our social channels are at the bottom. Give us a follow. That's everything from us today. Thank you very much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.